You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. Day 3 of the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals training camp was held today. Dave Lapham was there to watch all the action and lap. The first thing we got to get to is touch on some kind of off-the-field business that took onto the field as the Cincinnati Bengals signed 3 free agents, a cornerback, a wide receiver, and makes a lot of questions for fans, a punter.
Yeah, I asked Darren Simmons about that, and he kiddingly said during practice, he goes, I just like to have a threesome, at that position. He just kind of laughed it off a little bit. Honestly, Dave, I think part of it is, you got to get up to 90 players, and this team is so good. There's so few opportunities to actually, crack never mind the starting lineup, never mind the 2 deep, just to crack that 53-man roster, and then even to make a practice squad opportunity. I think a lot of guys go to other opportunities where they have a better shot, to make a football team. So because you think a third punter, they didn't waive anybody. And the punter is Ryan Rako, 6'5", 235-pounder out of BYU, college free agent initially with Kansas City, and they waived him in May. Averaged 47.5 yards a punt at BYU. And 74 punts inside the 20-yard line. So he had a nice career there. But as we know, punting at BYU, you got some rarefied air. You have a little edge there, little advantage there. Nate Brooks, the cornerback out of North Texas, he's a 2-year player. Originally a college free agent out of Arizona, taken by Arizona out of North Texas as a college free agent. He also has had stops with the Miami Dolphins, the Baltimore Ravens. So you got a guy that has been exposed to training camps and trying to crack into somebody's roster. Like I said, here, not necessarily with the Bengals roster, but everything's on tape. So you're not performing for one football team, you're performing for 32. And then at wide receiver, this guy was impressive. I mean, I'm looking at this number 82. I'm like, man, this is a new number. This is a new guy, 6'5". 227-pound wide receiver, Hakeem Butler out of Iowa State. Like, boy, it definitely looks the part. Originally a 4th-round pick with Arizona back in 2019. He's also spent time with the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL. So, I mean, he wants another opportunity, another crack at it. So you got 3 additional players in the mix for the Cincinnati Bengals that reported to practice today.
Says a lot about the wide receiver Butler. Not with any NFL team from 2021 through 2023. That means he's kept himself in shape to have this opportunity.
You look at it. What's something that the Bengals really appreciate is big catch radius. This guy, I mean, he's like I said, 6'5", and his arms are accordingly. I mean, he's got some serious length to his arms. We talk about T. Higgins. His huge catch radius, it's 6'4", with long arms. That's Mickey, his height with his long arms, big catch radius. When they high point the ball, they're catching it at a high point. So, I mean, they like that type of situation, that type of characteristic, that type of physical trait with their wide receivers. Not all of them, but there's a good balance of them.
We've talked in our previous 2 reports about Jamar Chase not taking part in practice. He's there. T. Higgins held out one of the days, but no Joe Burrow day 3, which was expected, nothing to be alarmed about. But Dave, if we go back a year ago and with our training camp reports we did then, a big difference in a year for Jake Browning, where a year ago he's struggling, he's fighting, he's scratching and clawing to make a roster of the Cincinnati Bengals to be Joe Burrow's backup. And now he's got proven winning material as a starting quarterback in the NFL after Joe Burrow went down against the Ravens, and Jake almost took him to the playoffs. So big difference in it, what a year makes. And how did he respond today with Joe being out and him getting those extra reps?
Yeah, I mean, you could see that he's got tremendous amount of confidence. He owns the playbook. He's got the swagger of a guy that has been there and done that. He's been rewarded accordingly. He got a new contract. So in my estimation, in a lot of people's estimation within the organization and probably around the league, the 1-2 punch of Joe Burrow and Jake Browning, the Killer Bees, is pretty damn good. So I think they feel good about it. And he executed things very, very well today. Now, Jamar Chase didn't practice, but T. Higgins was back at practice. Other guys that didn't go, Joe had a veteran day. Obviously, they're monitoring his snaps. Sam Hubbard did not practice today. He had a veteran day. Trey Hendrickson still not practicing today. I think it's a minor issue with his chest, like I talked about. It's not normally you don't get 2 veteran days before a day off, this early in training camp. But Trey's going to be fine. There's no issue there. So they rested a few guys, and it is a good thing to have veteran days on a day before they have the off day. So you get guys in the league like Sam Hubbard. Believe it or not, Sam Hubbard is one of the veteran guys on this football team now. I mean, Sam's this will be his 7th year of Ohio State, and man, I'll tell you, Dave, talking about him for a second, man, he played hurt. The last 7 games of the year last year, he was hopping around on one leg. He was dragging a leg. And as you know, and having covered him for a long time, this guy's got a big heart, and he's tough as nails. So he was out there, sucking it up and doing what he could to help the football team. Now that he's back and rehabbed that injury to his foot, I mean, man, he's changing direction. He's moving. He's always in tip-top shape. I mean, he's a freaking machine, really. And it was impressive to see him in yesterday's practice. At the end of practice, Joe Burrow broke contain, got out of the pocket. Joe can move. Joe's a good athlete. And Joe's trying to dipsy-do in space and change their, and Sam's like mirroring every move. I was like, well, look at this. This is the Sam Hubbard we know and love. But seeing him and Trey Hendrickson, those two, potentially off the edge, that tandem. But back to Jake Browning, I mean, he performed at a very high level. Gives the Bengals a heck of a tandem at the quarterback position. So it's there's going to be attrition, and we talked about it with respect to Joe Burrow over the last 5 years. His senior year at LSU and the first 4 years of the Bengals. His senior year at LSU, healthy, Heisman, national championship, pretty good. All right, so 2 of his 4 years with the Bengals, when he was able to play a balance of the snaps, a high percentage of the snaps, they go to the AFC Championship and to the Super Bowl. The 2 years that he was struggling in that area, they didn't. So it's paramount. You don't want to have attrition at the quarterback position with Joe Burrow. But Jake Browning, to his credit, showed that, look, don't have to throw, not only the bathwater out the window, but the baby out the window with the bathwater. I mean, you're going to be okay. You got a quarterback that can execute and understands the offense and has a good relationship, a working relationship with his receiver group. There's trust both ways there. So yeah, they're in a pretty good position there. There's no question about it, Dave.
Guys are fighting for that number 3 quarterback spot. Teams like to keep a 3rd quarterback. Logan Woodside, Rocky Lombardi, the rookie. Talk about those guys. What did you see out of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, they operated pretty well, I thought. The defense had their share of wins. There was a tipped interception. There was a pick 6. I thought the defensive backs had another very, very good day. No question about it. But it's a process. I think everybody that is involved with taking evaluation on the quarterbacks that's going to be involved in those discussions, whether it be coaches or scouts or front office personnel, all of them will be involved. I mean, I think they're going to like to see these snaps, the increased number, because, when Joe's out there taking snaps and Jake's taking other snaps, there's very few to distribute amongst the other guys. When Joe's not out there, now, again, everybody just next man up. Everybody moves up a notch, and you get an opportunity to execute snaps. Now, Joe Burrow he didn't throw very much at all. I did see him throw a couple of little lazy bloopers, during one of the quarterback drills. He wasn't even really a part of the drill, though. But when they were doing the run game, Joe was working on his footwork. He was working on, handling the football, making sure that everything was going to be high and tight with the running backs. And So it wasn't like he wasn't out in the football field. He was out there. He did a couple of things, and he was taking mental reps like he always does. And that's what the guys are doing that aren't necessarily involved physically on a snap-by-snap basis. But when they have those veteran days, they're out there. They're not in the locker room, in the hot tub, having themselves a Mai Tai or something like that. I mean, they're out there in the sun, just watching and taking mental reps and encouraging their teammates and everything that goes along with it. So, Joe Burrow, obviously a big part of it that way.
We talked prior to putting on the recording button here. The one thing about training camp the other day, I saw when you were there, Kenny Anderson was there, Willie Anderson was there. Today, Jonathan Hayes, former tight end coach for the Bengals, who's now the AD at Moeller. And then the great Anthony Munoz was there. All eyes on Amarius Mims. Talk about what did those guys have to say about the big guy?
I mean, he's a guy that everybody, when they look at him, it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, his traits are so overwhelming. I mean, Dave, I just can't help but think he's going to have a long, bright future. And again, barring injury, he's had injury issues, and that's obviously, the biggest problem that any player faces at any level. And you hope that you never get attacked by the injury gods that way. So, but looking at him, when he moves like a 200-pound guy in a 350-pound body that can actually carry more. There's no reason to for him to put on more weight, but it is unbelievable. Willie Anderson, I was talking to Willie. Willie's like, he's got basketball feet, man, and I think that's a good description. His movement skills are exceptional, and he looks like a guy that is much smaller in stature than he really is. And you see him finish the drill and stand up and walk back to the huddle and dwarf everybody else. It's like, oh my gosh, man, this guy has got extreme talent. Now, if in fact, he does end up the starting tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals, the last guy who started his first career game, his rookie season, was the legendary and great Anthony Munoz. So will Mims be the next one? Only time will tell there. But yeah, Anthony was there with two of his grandsons, Michelle's sons. And man, they're 13 and 14 years old. They're both about 6'4". They both wear size 14 shoes. Basketball for one, basketball and football for the other. The other's a quarterback in football. I mean, it's like, holy mackerel. This is one hellacious gene pool right here. That they're just incredible athletes to look at. And then Jonathan Hayes, his brother Jay, coached the defensive line, and he's got offspring that had success in the world of football. And Jonathan's got a couple. One of them is competing on the edge at outside linebacker / defensive end type position at Virginia, and he's got another one that's a senior at Moeller. And Jonathan himself is now the athletic director at Moeller. And yeah, it was good to see the guys that have had success in the league, and Jonathan both as a player and a coach, and now an athletic director. So yeah, it was here in three practices. I had these two guys and their families were there today, and then of course on day one it was the Anderson boys, Willie and Kenny Anderson. That are both adorning those Ring of Honor jackets and are trying to bust into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. So it's been a nice run to start training camp with people like that observing on the sideline.
Dave, you made me feel old when you started talking about Sam Hubbard. I remember interviewing Sam Hubbard when he was at Moeller High School playing safety. And this is year 7. Know that he went through his time at Ohio State and plus a few years, won a couple state titles at Moeller. Really, it seems like it was just a few years ago when he was playing at Moeller. And so happy, as you said, Sam is one of the best guys I've ever had a chance to cover, interview over the years. And every time I see him, he says hello. And it's great to see a hometown kid be able to stay home and represent the city of Cincinnati playing for the Bengals. And we hope, after what we know what he went through a year ago, we hope this season is one that he stays healthy, because he brings a different dynamic when he is on the field.
Absolutely, he does. And as you mentioned, not only a phenomenal football player, but an even greater human being, just a tremendous person. There's no question about it. And we were talking about he's now engaged. He's going to get married next April. So he was talking about that a little bit. And it's been a long-term relationship. They met when they were in college. And, that's the typical Sam Hubbard right there. It's just a solid human being. I mean, I know one thing. If I had a daughter, if my daughter were fortunate enough to eventually in her lifetime marry a guy like Sam Hubbard, man, would I be one happy dad for my daughter? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, hard to believe. He's turned into be a pretty decent football player for a lacrosse player. Still remember going up to him and saying, hey, Mr. Hubbard, Sam Hubbard, how are you doing? Introducing myself, saying, dude, you're going to be a big time recruit. And he's like, nah, I'm committed to play lacrosse at Notre Dame. And I said, not for long. And it didn't take long for Urban Meyer to see the strengths that Sam Hubbard brought to the field, and didn't know quite what to do with him early on in his Ohio State career, but they figured it out, and the rest is history, as they say.
Well, like you said, you initially interview him as a defensive back, then they move him to linebacker, then they move him to defensive end. So you talk about a guy that's got athleticism. Ooh, come on now. Eye-hand coordination, lacrosse. And I mean, he has got it all. There's no question. And when you talk about that tandem, Trey Hendrickson, we mentioned him earlier, how he and Orlando Brown never missed a day down there for off-season workouts at Paycor. I mean, they were there working hard and working, pushing each other and working out together. And watching Trey in the first day before he had a little bit of an issue there, his get off, if you can believe it, is even better. I mean, it is even more explosive. He is unbelievable to watch, lightning quickness with that first step quickness, and then watching Sam Hubbard being healthy now, and watching the H boys, coming off the edge. That's pretty phenomenal. And now when those guys, just like when quarterbacks are down or wide receivers are down, or whatever the case may be, today both H boys were down. So what happens? Next man up. We're going to talk about some of these other edge guys that had an opportunity to step up and take more snaps today, and really more snaps the last 2 days because of Trey having situations, a situation that's kept him out. So we don't like to see guys being injured or sick or whatever the case may be, but and neither do the teammates. But when the snaps are there, go out and get them. And guys have been doing that. And that's what you're going to have. I mean, this football team is deep, and everybody, the third, fourth, and fifth wide receiver positions are up for grabs. I mean, nickel corner, is it a given? We'll see. Dime, is it a given? I mean, there are all kinds of things that are being competed for right now. You can take nothing for granted, and it's good to see the competitive nature that's going on at every position group. I mean, not just a couple of positions you might think about. And I guess that leads me to Dave. There's been all kinds of people have stepped up and made contributions, taking advantage of snaps that might not have initially been available to them. Some of them we talked about, some we haven't. Obviously, the first one I get like about 10 names or so here. I think like a 10 of the 90 that are in camp now. But Evan McPherson, I mean, I don't think the guy's missed yet. I don't think I've seen every kick necessarily, but the ones that I've seen, he hasn't missed. And I was asking a couple of people, has he missed yet in training camp? No, I don't think so. So he is obviously, when he's on, he's as good as anybody in the National Football League, and he can hit from big distances. There's no doubt. At the cornerback position, a rookie out of Texas Christian, 5th round pick. Josh Newton's for real. Again, it's underwear ball. There's no pads or anything. But when you're talking about corner, I'm talking about sinking his hips and getting in and out of cuts with receivers. I'm talking about changing direction, recoverability. Josh Newton can play. And I think he's done a pretty darn good job in these first 3 days and opening eyes of, boy, that's a pretty damn good 5th round pick. There's no question about it. Mentioned Chase Brown. I know how improved he is in my eye in terms of route running, and it's obvious to me that he really worked on that in the off season. And last year against the Colts, he had high 21, almost 22 mile an hour scoring play against the Colts. So we know the dude has got speed. That was the fastest time for a running back in the National Football League. So he's got that type of speed. Now you put it together with, man, somebody that can run routes and get open and then accelerate after the catch. Woo! With those other weapons now, Chase Brown, it might be something to watch. Amarius Mims, we talked about those basketball feet, and it starts with the feet and ends with the hands, as we talk about, Dave. And this dude has vice grips. I mean, all the defensive linemen, holy mackerel lap. Mims has got some strong hands. I know I was talking to Big Willie about it, and Big Willie, was doing some stuff with him. He said, boo, he's got some strong, and Willie's got mammoth hands and mammoth strength in his hands. So, I mean, for guys to talk about it that have strength in their hands as well, talking about that aspect of Mims's physical traits. I mean, there's a bunch of them, and he checks every box, Dave. This guy, everybody, when they watch him, to shake their head and say, oh, my goodness, this could be really interesting. And I also want to give a tip of the cap to Orlando Brown, because Mims is getting a lot of attention. Trent Brown has been getting attention because he's not been able to participate. When they signed him, another big mammoth offensive lineman. Well, I tell you, Orlando Brown's got a lot of personal pride. And this 6'8", 340, 50-pounder or so, going into his 7th year out of Oklahoma, he made a huge commitment to be down there at Paycor and work as hard as he possibly could with Trey Hendrickson. They, again, pushed each other, and a lot of respect there going into training camp between those two. And, man, he's moving exceptionally well. He's in great shape. His movement's there. His strength has always been there. He's finishing blocks. I mean, I think watch out for the big O. Orlando Brown could have a pretty darn good year. Yostivash, we've talked about. He's got some long arms. He's got some strong hands catching the football. He high points the football. He's got length to him. This guy's 6'3" and he's got some long arms. So, with the strength of his body, pentathlete, the five events that he could do at the high level that he did, it's just, it's pretty amazing to watch him perform on a consistent basis. Every single practice, he's done something that's eye-catching. Talked about Gesicki at 6'6", over 250 pounds, 7th-year player out of Penn State. I mean, I think he's going to be another one that quarterbacks, when they see him in the middle of the football field, man, he's going to own it. I think it's going to be his real estate. I think he's going to be a huge factor. Kris Jenkins in the defensive line, Dave. I like this kid, man. He's going to take a bunch of snaps in the rotation, and when he's in there taking his snaps, I think he's going to flash pretty darn well. He's a worker, and he's conscientious. The game's important to him. His performance level is important. And then, like we talked about, when receivers have been out, when quarterbacks have been out, okay, now you get the H boys out, Osai and Akeem Davis-Gaither. Joseph Osai is a physical freak, 6'4", over 260 pounds, going into his 4th year out of Texas. His career has been derailed by injury. If this guy can stay healthy, and the other one is another guy that you know very well, Akeem Davis-Gaither, 6'2", almost 230 pounds, 5th year out of Appalachian State. His career has been curtailed by injury as well. If these two guys can stay healthy, I'm telling you, man, when they were out there today getting more reps because, next man up, a quick twitch. I'm telling you, the explosiveness, quick twitch, all of that. Man, it's like they get some depth in this football team. This roster, it's not just 22 guys. And if you want to get to where you desire to get to, you have to have a hell of a lot more than 22 guys, and this roster does. This is going to be, I think, one of the better ones in the National Football League. And if it doesn't get sabotaged and by injury, it should be pretty darn good. It should be fun to watch. There's no doubt, Dave.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Jenkins in pads in a game situation. Good friends with Mike Elston, who was the D-line coach at Michigan the last few years when Kris was up there. And Mike's now with Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. And nothing but great things to say about Kris Jenkins Jr., about what he does on the field and off the field. I'm excited to see what he brings, because he's going to be a guy who's going to be, even though it may be a role, he's going to be a guy that's going to be counted on for that defense, for Lou Anarumo, have that front that he needs to let those linebackers, Logan Wilson and Pratt, to do their things that they need to get done. So it's going to be interesting to see how the young guys develop. And you're listening to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. And Lap, as I said, no pads yet. A couple days away from pads being on and real football happening. But you got to be getting that feeling. Like you said, a day off coming up, let the bodies recoup. But when they come back, it's not much. It's getting into the real stuff. And one thing I can say from our conversations and also just looking at what the Bengals have done, Duke Tobin's done a great job putting together a roster. NFL teams are going to be paying attention to what the Cincinnati Bengals do, because they're going to be watching the Bengals, who they waive. And you're going to see a lot of guys, I think, that when that starts happening, are going to get picked up by other teams.
No doubt. I mean, I can honestly say there's probably at least 60 players of the 90, and more of them are worthy of making the football team. But I'm saying there's going to be 60 players where it's going to be tough decisions, man. I mean, there's not all 32 teams in the NFL. They wish they could say, yeah, I'm going to training camp with 60 players that any one of the 60 I'd be good with on my final roster. That's pretty darn good. That's pretty extraordinary, really. And yeah, I do. I think that it should be a tip of the cap there. They've done a great job exploring all areas of it: veteran free agency, the draft, signing guys as college free agents, and then retaining them, and with the era of salary cap, it's a lot of gymnastics. And you see what's going on with other teams in the National Football League, and they're trying to piece together and puzzle together what's going on after signing Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins accepts his franchise tag, and does so, taking a while to do so. It's just the nature of the business in the National Football League. So, when you're dealing with all this stuff, to be able to put together the roster that they've put together, it's pretty extraordinary. And I do agree with you about Jenkins. And the other thing, Jim Harbaugh, he runs a very, very tight, disciplined ship. So Jenkins excelled at Michigan. And honestly, I mean, watching tape on him at Michigan, he was in a very structured, disciplined defensive schematic. And then watching him here at training camp, dude, he's got explosiveness that they weren't even utilizing. I mean, to watch him hit gaps and penetrate, it's like, man, they didn't have him do that at Michigan, And it's like, he's got some physical traits and skill sets that I'm sure Lou Anarumo and the defensive coach is going to tap into. I'm excited to see him for sure. It's going to be interesting, and that's the thing, is there's nothing wrong with good competition, and if you can share snaps, there's nothing wrong with that either. It lessens injury risk. If there is an injury, you have another guy that I'm not sure if he's ready. I think he's ready. Well, if they're sharing snaps, he's ready. You've already got tape to prove it. You're not crossing your fingers and hoping. So, there's a lot of good things to look forward to, I think, with this group.
Yeah, Harbaugh, Jesse Minter was his defensive coordinator, following him to the Chargers, and ties to Cincinnati. His dad, Rick Minter, used to be the head coach of the UC Bearcats. I've known Rick for many years, and Jesse, kind of watched Jesse grow up. Again, you talk about aging yourself. But, I mean, what they did with their D-line was they rotated a lot of guys at Michigan last season on their way to a national championship. And that, I think a lot of people, when they looked at Kris Jenkins' stats, were kind of like, well, he did this, but he didn't do a lot of this. And it was just, they had the players. They had a stock roster that they could do a lot of things with. And they played, I want to say they were playing 9 to 11 guys up front that they were rotating in and out, keeping guys fresh. So it's going to be interesting to see what this young man does in the National Football League. As you've said before, he comes from an NFL family. He's from a football guy. He's grew up in the game. So those guys always, anytime you get someone who's either been a son of a player or son of a coach, they usually have a little bit more to their game as far as the mental aspect of the game. And you and I both know it's not just all physical. This is the play in the National Football League is as much mental as it is physical. It's great to have all we talk about the Mims, all the physical tools, but you got to be able, as you've said many times, to put it together, the mental aspect, and perform it on the field. And he should be a young man that has those tools And it'd be interesting to see how his rookie season goes and what the Bengals can get out of him in year one.
Yeah, I mean, from a mental standpoint, we're talking about not just the football IQ, the football aptitude, to understand concepts, to understand schematics, to understand your role within that schematic, but the mental part of it also, to fight through, the tough times, to show leadership when leadership needs to be shown. I mean, all the intangibles that go with the mental toughness and the mentality that you have to play the game as well. And, the great ones have it all, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And, others, if there's a hole there, you certainly don't want it to be a big hole in terms of character or intelligence or mental toughness or whatever the case may be. But the really successful players, they have it all, and to a good degree. There's no question.
You've been in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. Be sure to like, share. Make sure you put that out there. Tell other Bengals fans that may not have seen over the last 3.5 years of what Dave's been doing on In the Trenches, and put it out there on your Twitter and your social media feed so more people find it. You can find the show on YouTube on Dave Lapham In The Trenches or the First Star Media Group. And you can also listen to most episodes that are done wherever you get your podcast from. Lap, as always, we can't say enough about First Star Logistics. We had a chance to be in the studio a little bit this morning, got a couple videos up from earlier today, and always looking forward to talk to you. I guess you get a day off tomorrow, right?
Yeah, day off tomorrow, and then back at it on Sunday. They have a night practice from 6 to 8 on Sunday night, and then they'll be wearing shells, I think, when they come back after the day off. It's just the foam padding that guys will put on their shoulders. It's not shoulder pads as such. And then Tuesday is going to be the first full padded practice. So that's when the rubber meets the road, man. That's when we'll see what sometimes guys look really good in underwear ball and they disappear when the pads come on. And then the opposite can be too. It's like, boy, I don't know about this guy. Then all of a sudden the pads come on. Oh man, we got a football player here. So that's always the next step in terms of evaluation of what you're seeing, and that's the exciting part of it, because that's when the game is the game. Full pads.
Looking forward to our conversations after those practices, Lap. So until next time, everybody, this has been Dave Burke with Dave Lapham. You have been In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. Hooday.
Hooday, Dave.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.